Thank you. Turn it that way. We're going to hand it over to Jim.
Okay. Well, I want to echo his comments. It's a great turnout, especially with the weather. I didn't know how the weather might impact this. But you know, I've been able to personally visit some of y'all, and I know Matt's done the same thing in walking Main Street, and we were conducting kind of a similar meeting to this one last Thursday morning. We called the morning crowd, and thought that it would be a good idea to have an evening meeting also, so that we can make it as convenient as possible for everyone who wanted to participate. But how I opened up the last meeting and some of those individual conversations that I've had with some of y'all is to sort of talk about, you know, how, you know, I'd like to see the downtown program of the city organized in terms of our support for y'all. And, you know, then we've gotten into the details and requested y'all's feedback. But I broke the areas that we're working in downtown into three. There's promotions, you know, promoting the downtown. They're trying to generate activity, I just call that events, and then special projects. And those are mainly projects that involve the city investing public money and trying to use those projects as a catalyst for you know, retail activity and economic development downtown. One of the things that I changed recently, and I guess we got the ball started on this really over the summer, was how we're organized in terms of dealing with the downtown. And one thing that I thought would be an improvement, and it's actually a return to the way that we used to do things, was the need to centralize the responsibilities for the personnel and staff responsible for downtown projects, events and promotions. And that's really how it was when I was hired onto the city. I just happened to be the person that was hired into that role. But, you know, essentially I was the liaison for the merchants and property owners downtown in the city. And I think that was more effective. And we really had those responsibilities distributed, you know, across a couple of people. And so the change I made with respect to that is assigning those responsibilities to Matt, who's with us today. Matt, you all know him. Matt has been in charge of our projects and has been heavily involved with our events, not only downtown but throughout the city. An area that he's not been working directly in is the marketing, but I think by virtue of getting him involved in that area, that he'll better be able to communicate with y'all, you know, what we're doing in those areas, but then also, and probably more importantly, you know, getting y'all's feedback, and particularly when it comes to marketing and events, figuring out ways that we can all work together and you know, be more effective and possibly save everyone more money. I mean, that's the kind of the premise behind cooperative strategies. But Matt will be responsible for those three areas, and he's actually currently working with you know, his staff to identify some new initiatives in all three areas. On the special project front, one major initiative, and it's been funded in this year's budget, is the need for us to invest again in the physical environment downtown. You know, the streetscape in Newberry, you know, 11 years ago was in much better condition than it is in now. You know, there was streetscaping that was done shortly after the Opera House was renovated and opened for business. And, you know, the improvements that were made have reached kind of the end of their life, and it's time to give the downtown some more curb appeal. And I guess this process started back, actually probably this time last year, but really picked up last spring, you know, when I first approached the council about funding it. The way that the grant programs are working right now with the state, it just did not look like the money that DOT sets aside for enhancement projects was a real viable option, and we decided instead to apply for that money and do improvements around the college campus. And the concept there would be to link what was done in Oakland neighborhood with streetscaping to the downtown and establish a physical connection between the mill to the college and then to the downtown. It appeared that was going to be a much more effective funding vehicle for that. And what Matt was able to do was to go out and secure a grant from them, and then the matching money from the County Transportation Committee. So the College Street project cost the city, in terms of city financial resources that would be used for it, no money, unless there's some unforeseen condition we have to deal with or change orders. CDBG, which is a source of funding that we've used extensively in downtown, did not appear to be the best option. So what I went to the council for was the appropriation of one-time money for what amounts to a one-time, the improvements that will be made are not one-time in nature. You have to keep making the investment, but they will last for a long period of time. So it seemed to be a reasonable use of money in the bank. And that really picked up in the spring, and we were able to secure $586,000 in the current budget for expenditure on the project. We spent the summer with that project, though, trying to come up with how can we get the most bang for every dollar we spend. And, one of the things, and I don't know that it's really central to the success of the downtown, but you see very few downtowns that don't have this kind of environment. It's got to be comfortable for people to walk in. It generally has trees that shade people that are sitting on benches or that are walking the street, and it makes it people scale. When you're dealing with multi-story buildings, in a street with parked cars, it's usually scaled for cars. So that was one of the goals of the project, and one of the challenges that we've dealt with, and I remember starting in the city 11 and a half years ago, and wondering why we didn't have trees on Main Street, was that the highway department essentially said that because we have side-mounted traffic signals, and they have a federal standard that they have to enforce, that there be 215 feet of sight distance that are the speed limit that we have on Main Street, which they're not open to changing. That we couldn't plant trees on the sidewalk. And so we spent the summer, what if we tried this, or what if we tried that? I took an aerial and it was scaled, and I drew cones essentially of what your vision is. Because you're not worried about your peripheral vision, you're worried about what's out in front of you. And would there be the ability, if you had a cone this way and then a cone for the opposite traffic, where those two cones don't intersect, could you plant trees in those areas? And the DOT came back and said no, that wasn't something that they would approve. They're completely risk averse. One solution was to take the street out of highway, state highway maintenance, and I just have some real concerns about the base. Main Street appears to need to be resurfaced about every 5 to 7 years, and there's some sort of hand-laid granite block storm drains that run under it that if there was a problem with them, would be extremely expensive to deal with. So I wasn't really eager for the city to get exposed to that. So another option we looked at was, what about installing cantilever traffic signals? And this is, trying to deal with the timeline, this was essentially what we worked on this summer that got us to this point. And the cantilever traffic signals would essentially be a large diameter pole, larger than what we've got now at the intersections. You'd probably go with something fluted so it would be decorative, and it would have an arm that would hang over the street, and your traffic signals would be mounted to it, overhanging the center line roughly. Well, those units for the 3 intersections are $250,000. That's engineered, permitted, and installed. And the intersections we're talking about dealing with are Caldwell, College, and Lindsay, working our way back to this where we're at today. For all 3 intersections, yeah, to do those. And the lifespan of the lights, they would last every bit of 20 years. So if you divide 250,000 by 20 years, you're not talking about a really high annual cost, but and that would be necessary just to plant the trees. And so one of the concepts, and I talked about it in walking some on Main Street, and then also in the meeting we had last Thursday, was do we want to look at one, completely abandoning the concept of trees, and do we want to take that $250,000 plus the money in the budget for the trees? I'm sorry, I don't recall exactly what that number was. Do we want to put that in a pool of money so that we could, essentially blitz downtown with some facade improvements? There are some examples of successful facade grant programs, and I think it's something that needs to be funded on an ongoing basis, but it would be a great down payment towards a program like that if we were able to take those resources and apply it, and then reserve $50,000, $100,000, whatever that number is, in future city budgets to essentially perpetuate the program. Another option we looked at was doing the facade improvements, and I think these would mainly because you're spreading them out over so many buildings. they would almost have to be cosmetic in nature. I mean, it wouldn't be enough money to do like weatherization or re-roof buildings or even probably install windows.